Варвара Михайловна, не изволите вы сегодня смотаться с папенькой в соседний город, душеньку потешить?» Дочка радостно блеснула карими глазенками. Вот это новость! Вечно занятой отец наконец-то догадался, как уделить ей максимум своего драгоценного времени. «Конечно, пап». «Ну тогда по коням. Собирайся быстрей». Михаил с любовью посмотрел вслед дочери, которая без лишних разговоров унеслась к себе, наряжаться. Да, бизнес не позволял бывать с Варварой чаще, чем этого хотелось. Но если получалось, то Михаил старался, чтобы выходной день навсегда остался в памяти девочки. Они веселились на полную катушку, дурачились, смеялись. Вместе с Варей Михаил катался до одури на каруселях, греб веслами на лодке, разрешал аниматорам разрисовывать себя под одноногого пирата, да под кого угодно. Люди поглядывали на хулиганскую парочку и завидовали. Вот повезло девчушке, какой у нее веселый дедушка. Михаил не обижался. Что поделать, если стал папой очень поздно? До этого он, ветеран 2 чеченских, отставной майор ВДВ, а ныне уважаемый всеми бизнесмен Михаил Матвеевич Глазов, верно служил родине, практически не вылезая из горячих точек. Не захотела Настя ему рожать, боялась осиротить детишек. С Настей он познакомился еще до армии. Михаил был тогда совсем молодым парнем. Увидел девчонку на танцах и влюбился без памяти. А она на него даже внимания не обращала. Дочка начальника заводского цеха с претензиями. Зачем ей какой-то вчерашний школьник? Родители у Миши были простыми людьми. Отец на том самом заводе вкалывал, а мама – уборщица. Вокруг Насти увивались кавалеры, по сравнению с которыми Миша – ноль без палочки. Но упорство и настырность взяли свое. Уговорил красавицу расписаться. Отец Насти не рад был, да никуда не денешься, любовь. А потом Мишу забрали в армию. Жена осталась ждать, живя под отцовской крышей. Отслужив срочную, парень остался на контрактной службе, чтобы заработать на собственную квартиру. А дальше больше. Время было неспокойное, в любой момент могли убить. Миша исправно присылал супруге деньги, иногда вырывался в отпуск. А она раз от разу становилась все холоднее и равнодушнее. Какие уж тут дети. Настя так и сказала. «Тебя убьют? А мне что прикажешь? С ребенком на руках жалкие копейки считать? Да меня и замуж никто не возьмет». За такие слова Глазов чуть не ударил жену, но сдержался. Права была Настя. Ни жена, ни вдова. Не сладко ей было одной. Да и отец всю душу упреками вымотал. Ранило в ногу Глазова. Выходили хирурги, но хромота осталась на всю жизнь. Пока он в военном госпитале парился, Настасья подала на развод. Михаил не осуждал супругу, всякое бывает. Наверное, не судьба. После демобилизации из армии Михаил Матвеевич занялся небольшим бизнесом. Открыл несколько небольших магазинчиков в своем родном городке. Друзья-однополчане помогли с деньгами, и дело потихоньку пошло. Миллионов Глазов не нажил, но на хлеб с маслом хватало. Вроде бы жизнь наладилась. Да только томило майора одиночество и неустроенный быт. Работала в его фирме одна милая женщина. Ее звали Полиной. Она была такой же одинокой, развелась в свое время с пьяницей мужем. Михаил частенько поглядывал на симпатичную, спокойную Полю и диву давался. Да чего мужики нынче избалованные, такое сокровище на водку променять? В первое время Глазов не решался с ней поближе познакомиться, только деловые отношения. Да и старше Полины на 15 лет был. Но женщина есть женщина. Почуяла, что неравнодушен к ней Михаил. Заговорила с ним просто, как с хорошим другом. «А давайте в кафе сходим». Глазов обрадовался. Столик в ресторане заказал, весь вечер за Полиной ухаживал. Правда, потанцевать не удалось, мешала хромота. Вокруг да около ходить не стал, так и брякнул. «Выходи, Поль, за меня замуж, если не боишься, что раньше тебя помру». Она посмотрела на него, ладного, подтянутого, военной выправки не потерявшего, и ехидно спросила. «Это почему же, Миша, вы раньше меня на тот свет собрались? А может, я раньше вас уйду?» «Типун тебе на язык, вредная!» – смеялся Глазов. Так и стали они супругами. Очень хорошо жилось с Полиной Глазову. Хозяйка, каких поискать. Умница, а главное, мягкая такая, женственная. Никогда голоса не повысит, ни за что Михаила не упрекнет. Конечно, по офису слухи разные ходили. Хитрая, мол, эта Полинка, окрутила дурака за 4 пятака, а он лопух и поверил. Села на шею мужа и ноги свесила. Еще покажет она Мише, где раки зимуют. На чужой роток не накинешь платок. Михаил плюнул на сплетни и предложил супруге поскорее родить ребенка. «Поздно мне рожать, Мишенька. 2 аборта с дуру в юности сделала, зато Бог и наказал. Не могу иметь детей», – печально ответила Полина на вопрос мужа. Может, правду говорила, а может, врала. Как знать. Решили взять малыша из приюта. Так и появилась в их семье Варвара. Малюсенькая, худенькая, с огромными карими глазами, она выглядела 2-летней. Воспитатели заверяли, что девочке 5 лет. Просто нужен был уход, любовь, забота. Полина с жаром начала отдавать Варе и заботу, и любовь. Михаил не отставал. А оказалось, что у них этих качеств хватало с избытком. Девчонка росла, развивалась, была умницей и шалуньей. Глазов вспоминал про те годы, как про самые лучшие в своей жизни. Несчастье обрушилось на Михаила внезапно, зимним погожим днем. Полина пропала. Поехала на важную встречу по делам фирмы и не вернулась. Через некоторое время оперативники нашли в реке автомобиль жены. Тело не обнаружили. Машину занесло на скользкой дороге и выбросило с моста. Наверное, Полина пыталась выбраться, но под ледным течением ее унесло так далеко, что найти не представлялось никакой возможности. То, что ее уже нет на этом свете, стало не догадкой, а страшным фактом. Спасатели прошли десятки километров и виновато разводили руками. Шансов на спасение – 0. Если только не случится чудо или не было все это специально подстроено Полиной. Одновременно с женой пропал и управляющий делами Антон Трегубов, тот еще тип. Майор его терпеть не мог. Интриган, хитрец. Этот смазливый плут с бегающими глазками раздражал и бухгалтера. Полина давно просила уволить Трегубова, но Михаил не спешил. Уж очень виртуозно умел Антон договариваться с банками по поводу кредитов. И вот, исчез. А вместе с ним огромная сумма наличных. По офису поползли слухи. Было все ясно и без комментариев коллег. Михаил верил и не верил. Похороны кое-как организовал. Кофточку в гроб положил, а потом долго смотрел, как могильщики засыпают его комьями мерзлой земли. Глазов слышал глухой стук по крышке гроба и дрожал. Казалось, у него из груди вырвали сердце. Так было больно и страшно. Варенька целый год плакала, звала маму, а Михаил, устав слоняться по пустому дому, забредал в комнату дочки, прижимал ее к себе и пел колыбельные. Варя засыпала, а он беззвучно плакал. А еще голову сверлила мысль. Как же это? Полина так ненавидела Трегубова. Денег не жалко, нет. Хотелось знать правду и одновременно не хотелось ничего знать. Незаметно пролетело 5 лет. Михаил привык жить один, а Варвара росла под наблюдением домработницы Клавдии Степановны, мудрой немолодой женщины. Она ворчала, ругалась порой, но хозяйством управляла исправно, заодно и Варю воспитывала, словно добрая бабуля. В сущности, она такой и была. Глазов мотался по делам, неделями пропадая в чужих городах. Бизнес рос и требовал внимания. Варя отчаянно скучала по отцу. Михаил решил забрать ее с собой. Предстояла командировка в соседний город, известный туристический центр. Девчонка скакала от радости. Быстро собрались и поехали. Варвара не отлипала от окна и болтала без конца. И правда, места были необыкновенные. Старинные монастыри, белые церквушки, соборы, стены тысячелетней крепости. Все привлекало внимание Вари. Глазов ехал с черепашьей скоростью, давая возможность дочери налюбоваться всласть красотами старого города. И вдруг она закричала отчаянно: «Мама! Папа, останови, там мама!» Михаил ударил по тормозам. «Что? Где?» «Там, на остановке!» – кричала Варя. Мужчина развернулся и подъехал к автопавильону. На скамеечке сидела монашенка, смиренно сложив руки на коленях. «Посиди в машине, Варя», – тихо сказал он. Михаил вышел из автомобиля, присмотрелся и обомлел. Это была Полина. Он присел перед женщиной на корточки. «Полюшка, ты не узнаешь меня?» Монашка удивленно глядела на Михаила. «Вы, наверное, ошиблись, я не...» И тут Варя, нарушив приказ отца, выскочила из машины и бросилась на шею монахини. «Мама, мамочка, ты жива? Как я по тебе соскучилась!» Лицо женщины просветлело, а руки обняли девочку. Монахиня улыбалась и плакала, но это были слезы узнавания, слезы радости. Она вспомнила все. «Милый мой, хороший, живы, здоровы. Варюша, как ты выросла! О, Господи! Мишенька, поехали ко мне в монастырь. Там гостиница маленькая, надо успокоиться, с матушкой Ефросиньей попрощаться». В маленьком домике при монастыре было тихо и прохладно. В комнате сидели 4: муж с женой и дочерью, и маленькая сухонькая старушка, мать Ефросинья, настоятельница Божьего дома. Полина все ей рассказала. «На то воля Господа, коли нашли тебя родные, удерживать не смею. Видимо, на роду тебе написана мирская жизнь. Дочери мать нужна, а мы за тебя с сестрами молиться будем денно и ночно». Голос Ефросиньи, ласковый, приятный, журчал ручейком. «Она спасла меня от смерти, выходила и травами выпоила», призналась Полина и поклонилась старушке. Тогда, 5 лет назад, именно Полина заподозрила Трегубова в краже денег. В отчетности упорно не сходилась сумма, и бухгалтер начала разбираться с причиной недостачи. Все ниточки вели к отделу Антона. Полина поняла, Трегубов давно и достаточно успешно мухлевал с обналичиванием кредитных сумм. Она буквально прижала его доказательствами. Антон, испугавшись скорого возмездия, пообещал вернуть все деньги, находившиеся у него в тайнике в домике за городом. «Полина Андреевна, прошу вас без свидетелей, умоляю!» И уговорил женщину поехать вместе с ним. Он умел уговаривать. Полине бы насторожиться, но она словно разум потеряла, отправилась за город. На шоссе перед самым мостом Антон попросил Полину остановить машину, его укачало. А потом удар по голове и кромешная темнота. «Расскажи мне, кто эту историю, я бы не поверила. Наверное, Трегубов нервничал, поэтому забыл закрыть дверцу. Я не помню, как выбралась, но ведь зима была. Как меня под лед не утянуло, не знаю. Я нашла сестру у моста. Полынья была большая, лед еще толком не схватился. Выкинула ее на берег, прямо под опору, слава богу. А я в это время из села выходила на дорогу, чтобы поймать машину. В поселке приют есть, я туда гуманитарную помощь сопровождала. А наш микроавтобус на обратной дороге застрял. Вот я и отправилась за помощью. Гляжу, а под мостом кто-то лежит. Вот и получилось так, что Господь меня направил», – рассказывала Ефросинья. Настоятельница вернулась к водителю, и он, здоровый мужчина, вытянул раненую на дорогу. На попутке Полину отвезли в больницу, где врачи поставили диагноз – потеря памяти, спровоцированная сильным ударом. Монахиня посещала больную, приносила гостинцы, а потом отвезла в свой монастырь. Вот так я и жила. Здесь мне было хорошо, только сердце ныло каждый день. Тихо прошептала Полина. «По дочери оно ныло, материнское сердце, вещун», ответила Ефросинья на немой вопрос женщины. Семья попрощалась с настоятельницей и другими монахинями. Матушка благословила всех 3 напоследок. «Живите, ладно, и не разлучайтесь, в горе ли, в радости, держитесь друг за дружку», сказала старуха, перекрестив Полину, Михаила и Варвару. Глазовы возвращались в родной город и чувствовали себя такими счастливыми. Клавдия Степановна, верный ангел-хранитель, так и осталась жить при семье, став совершенно родным человеком этим людям. Трегубова объявили в розыск. Нашли его быстро и увели прямо с пляжа одного из черноморских курортов. Срок Антону светил немалый. Впрочем, туда ему и дорога. На его место давно приняли замечательного молодого сотрудника, честного и неподкупного. Варвара пошла в 5 класс, где продолжила держать высокий статус круглой отличницы. Михаил и Полина усыновили еще 2 ребятишек, братьев-близнецов. Теперь в большом доме Глазовых каждый день происходила настоящая чехарда. Уж очень шумными и непоседливыми оказались мальчишки. Если вам понравился рассказ, просьба поддержать меня кнопкой «Палец вверх». А чтобы узнавать о выходе новых интересных историй, при подписке нажмите колокольчик. Всего вам доброго.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. and he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.